Jihad has come to America.
It constitutes the most devastating series of terrorist attacks in history.
The only deen Allah accepts is Al-Islam. And whoever seeks any other deen apart from Islam will never be accepted.
Allahu Akbar! And we stand together to win the war against terrorism.
But you too will make your destruction!
Welcome back to Jihad Exposed, live on ABN. Before we take our next call, I'd like to just ask Imam Mustafa a few questions here. We see Saudis spending, Imam Mustafa, almost $3 billion trying to export their radical version of Islam globally. If that's the case, that's a lot of money. If that's the case, why, I mean, you're saying that it has nothing to do with Islam. Where are they getting this ideology from? Why are they so intent on spreading such a radical ideology globally if it has nothing to do with the religion of Islam?
Well, the question itself is pregnant with a supposition that the Muslim charity to Muslim worlds out there is funding terrorism or radical whatever. That is not true. You do not know that. There's no objective evidence of that. Most importantly, the thing that kept repeating by Mr. Spencer and Mr. Pipes, different versions of Islam, radical Islam, moderate Islam, terrorist Islam, Islam with gravy or whatever, there's nothing that supports that. And when we brought examples of the behavior of the Prophet of Islam himself, Mr. Spencer said that, you know what, you're bringing me back to history. You want me to bring you examples of Prophet Muhammad that are yet to come, or tell you what the Prophet of Islam himself said about the topics that you're talking about? Again, Mr. Pipes misunderstood me. What I meant is that Mr. Pipes, being a PhD in history, when you make a claim such as that Islam is a supremacist religion or is an imperialistic religion, bring me a proof from the Quran or the correct hadith of the Prophet. For example, the verse that Mr. Spencer brought that he proves the subjugation of non-Muslims on Muslims' land. What it means is that people who evade paying taxes should be forced to pay taxes. And that is applicable to Muslims before it's applicable to non-Muslims. Abu Bakr fought the Muslims who refused to pay the poor right and the rich's money in what is known by Harb al-Ridda. So you don't tell me that a non-Muslim who's living in a Muslim state afforded the peace and security in a Muslim state and he should live tax-free, otherwise he's persecuted. And these are the quality of the examples that, and we heard it so many times from Mr. Spencer, oh, it's all over Sharia, it's all over Quran, it's all over Hadith. And as usual, I authored The Lies About Muhammad, 400 pages, and I answered the ideology of Mr. Spencer page by page and paragraph by paragraph, and it speaks for itself. I'll give you another example before I move
real quick, before you go on to the next example. Before you go on to the next example, let me just ask you a quick question on this example so we stay on topic. So you're saying basically under an Islamic state, nowhere in the Quran it states that a non-Muslim is subjugated to Islamic law, whether it be pay the jizya tax or convert to Islam or be killed. That's not listed in the Quran.
Muslims pay tax, non-Muslim pay tax. For example, the Muslim tax, the jizya tax, is 1 dinar per year, which is equivalent to $100 per year.
I'm asking you just a straightforward question. Basically, yes. If a non-Muslim, I'm not a Muslim, if the United States became an Islamic state, would I be subjugated to either become Muslim or pay the jizya tax or be killed?
Muslim, if you choose to be a Muslim, you pay the Muslim tax. If you are a non-Muslim, you pay the non-Muslim tax. And it's a fair tax. An example, $100 per year per person. The rabbi, the priest, the children, the women do not pay, only be able to fight men.
What if I don't want to pay the tax or become a Muslim? What happens?
What if you want to pay tax in America, which is not a Muslim state now? What would they do to you?
Well, I wouldn't be killed. I don't think I'd be killed. Right?
Well, who said that you're going to be killed
if
you don't pay tax?
Right, well, that's just my question. I just wanted to ask the question because it's been said that the Quran does state that you have those three options as a non-Muslim in an Islamic state, which is what I wanted clarification on.
The verse is there. If you don't pay tax, you should be fought by the authorities, like the IRS fight people in this country if they evade or cheat on taxes, like any country in the world. It's not unique to the Muslims, and the Muslims themselves pay tax, and if they don't pay, they would be subject to the authorities for paying their taxes. On top of that, here's the subjugating aspect of also being a non-Muslim. You're exempt from military service. How bad is that? I bet Mr. Spencer would want every Christian to go there and be killed, him and his children, just not to be persecuted by Muslims for not being exempt from the military service. That's the kind of nonsense that we hear. So I ask of Mr. Spencer and I ask for Mr. Pipes, when you make these broad claims, that is in the Quran and the Hadith, show me one Hadith, show me a verse in the Quran, show me the verse before and the verse after, and say that to your readers and let them decide for themselves.
Okay, Robert, real quick, and then we'll take our next call.
Well, here again, we have Mr. Zayed being dishonest and doing this bait and switch. I was speaking about his examples about Ferdinand and Isabella and so on. He pretends that I was referring to his examples about Muhammad when I said we're talking about now he's just giving history instead of present examples. What he quoted about Muhammad was that Muhammad said, don't kill the Christians and Jews in the Islamic State. That's right, because they had to stay alive to pay taxes that would support the Islamic State. But that doesn't mean they had equality of rights. You notice he sidestepped your question entirely about whether Jews and Christians would enjoy equality of rights in the Islamic State. They don't. And the idea that the taxes that Muslims pay and that non-Muslims pay in the Islamic State are equivalent is false on the face of it, because all you have to do is look at the populations of the non-Muslims in the Islamic states and see how they steadily went down over history because they had to pay these the non-Muslims had to pay these huge tax rates. All they had to do to get out from under the crushing burdens that they had in these taxes was to convert to Islam. And so this is what happened to those populations. And nowadays, we have the same thing, that the problem with the rosy picture of Islam that Mr. Zayed is painting, and the idea that he's trying to claim that I am somehow misrepresenting Islam, is that Muslims all around the world are misunderstanding Islam the same way that I am. And Muslims all around the world are misapplying Islam and thinking that it has to do with warfare against Jews and Christians and subjugating Jews and Christians under the rule of Islamic law in exactly the same way that I am. And I don't know how they all got it so wrong and somehow misunderstood all these plain teachings that only I in my wickedness am misrepresenting. Really, Mr. Zayed's position is so palpably ridiculous, as is his book that purports to refute mine. My book, The Truth About Muhammad, is based on the earliest Islamic texts about Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. And all that Mr. Zayed offers in his 400 pages of alleged refutation is the same kind of thing he's offering here. Diversion, deception, accusations, and finger-pointing, but no substance whatsoever.
Okay, thank you for that. We have to take our next call. You're live on Jihad Exposed. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hello, you're live. Who do we have on air?
Yes, my name is Rashid, and I'm a former Muslim. I can't say where I'm calling from just because of security reasons, but I was watching your show. I'm really surprised that the Imam Mustafa is quoting hadith, says, whoever hurts a dhimmi, I'm his adversary.
Are you still with us? Oh, we must have lost that call. We apologize for that. Please call us back, Rashid. Let's take our next call. You're live on ABN.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm a Muslim myself. I'd like to, advise you when you conduct a meeting like this, you should have a clock in front of you, give a chance to the both, and it seems you're taking a side. That's obvious, but you got to be honest. Give it time for both sides. Look, the gentleman is talking about.
Sir, we're giving equal time for the people. We have a clock right there. Do you have a specific question for our panelists?
For you. Verse 929.
Yes.
That's a gentleman who is talking about. It says, "Qatilu alladhina la yadinu din al-haq." It said, fight with those who don't practice. They talk about the atheists in Mecca. This verses had a division. One for those atheists worshipping idols, and the second addressing the people of the book, which is a Christian and Jew, to pay tax. And if we see, we have to make some statements like, you see, the Prophet, be peace upon him, one of his wives was a Christian, another one was a Jewish. You see, in Islam, allowed us to eat your food, allowed us to marry your women. And they said, God Almighty telling us in the Quran, that's the closest near to us who those who claim they are followers of Jesus. Let's have some bridges, understanding each other. We condemn terrorism, we condemn killing innocent people, let's have some dialogue and some bridging. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling. I don't think Dr. Pipes or Robert were condemning Muslims. We're just trying to get to the bottom of what Islam teaches, from my understanding. They're not saying that Muslims support terrorism. I think even Robert said that, you know, there are Muslims out there that do publicly condemn terrorism. But again, it's Islam and it's not Muslims that we're trying to get to the bottom of. Let's take our next call here on Jihad Exposed.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
It's me again, Rashid. As I said, I'm a former Muslim, and I can say where I'm calling from. And I heard Imam Mustafa saying that, quoting a hadith saying, whoever hurts a dhimmi, I'm his adversary, and I shall be an adversary to him on the day of resurrection. And he knows that's a hadith da'if. That's a weak hadith. It's not an authentic hadith. And he tried to ignore another hadith, which is in Sahih Muslim. It says Muhammad is saying, لَأُخْرِجَنَّ الْيَهُودُ وَالنَّصَارَ مِنْ جَزِيرَةِ الْعَرَبِ حَتَّى لَا أَدَعَ إِلَّا مُسْلِمًا. Muhammad was saying that I will kick out Jews and Christians from the Arabic Peninsula, and I will not let only Muslims will be there. And he forgot to quote another hadith Sahih saying, لا تبدأ اليهود والنصارى بالسلام بعد لا تبدأوا اليهود والنصارى بالسلام وإذا وجدتم أحدهم في طريق فاضطروا إلى أضيافه. Don't start Christians and Jews with saying salam to them. And if you find whoever you find them in the street, you can push them to the narrow side. I'm trying to translate from the Arabic hadith. And he just using a weak hadith among other authentic hadiths and trying to ignore even their existence. He said also that Islam respects Christians and Jews, and that's really a joke, because my father is an imam until now, and he raised me as to hate Jews and Christians. And he said they are kuffars, they are infidels, and we should wage war against them. And he used as an argument why we still have millions of Christians in the Middle East. And I will say to him, because they paid jizya, because they paid money to Muslims. How about the millions who were killed under the rule of Islam? How about millions killed in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia? The North African Church, whom the fathers were Tertullian and Augustine and others, they were erased from the map. And you go back, Mr. Mustafa, to Muqaddimat ibn Khaldun, and you can read about how Muslims killed Jews and Christians in those countries. So my argument here, Islam hates Jews and Christians. If we go to the biography of Muhammad, we will find that he killed the Jews, he killed Banu Qurayda, he killed the Christians, he kicked them out from the Arabic Peninsula, and he wanted them either to be Muslims or to be killed. They had no other options. And in other places, they pay jizya. He said jizya just a tax. No, sir, it's a war tax. You don't pay tax in America or in Europe and you feel subdued. You don't do that. It's a war tax. You pay a higher tax to the Muslims because you refuse their religion. It's just a way to stay in your religion.
Sorry to cut you off. We have to go on to our next call. I apologize for cutting you off. We're running a little short on time, and our phone lines are very busy. Abdullah, did you have any comments before we took the next call?
Yeah, look, I thank the caller for his call, and thank Daniel and Robert for the discussion thus far.